India is a known hub of traditional knowledge. Given its vast biodiversity, India has a potential of providing natural products for therapeutics. India's ancient science is now gaining a lot of importance and it is getting translated into applied medical therapy for global acceptance. Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, the renowned former scientist president of India, once remarked that the use of natural products for treatment of diseases should be a major part of healthcare system. He said, India has a rich heritage of holistic therapeutics. No wonder the International Union of Basic and Clinical Pharmacology, IUPHAR, has chosen India to organize its 5th IUPHAR World Congress on the pharmacology of natural products. In addition, the 51st Annual Conference of the Indian Pharmacological Society was also conducted jointly. The theme of the conference was Natural Medicines for Healthy Aging, from Molecular Targets to Therapy. The Indian Pharmacological Society has completed 50 years of professional existence, and today it has over 5,000 active life members. It is a major affiliate member of IUPHAR. IUPHAR is an organization for evidence-based research on natural products. It is the world-leading pharmacology organization representing 37,000 pharmacologists. The venue of the conference was the ICMR National Institute of Nutrition, Hyderabad. The ICMR National Institute of Nutrition is a 100-year-old premier nutrition research institute in India. ICMR, the Indian Council of Medical Research, is the preeminent medical research and policy body in India. Professor Balram Bhargava, the Secretary, Department of Health Research, Government of India, and Director General, Indian Council of Medical Research, was the chief patron. Professor Y.K. Gupta, leading clinical pharmacologist in India and the past president of Indian Pharmacological Society, was the patron. Dr. R. Hemalata, the director of National Institute of Nutrition, was the convener of the conference. Dr. B. Dinesh Kumar, the president of Indian Pharmacological Society and councillor, IUPHAR Natural Products, was the organizing secretary. Dr. N. Arlappa, a known public health nutrition scientist of ICMR NIN, was the finance secretary. Professor Ingolf Kaskorby, the president of IUPHAR, and Professor Michael Spedding, the general secretary of IUPHAR, were the forces behind the conference. Professor Valerie, chair of pharmacology of natural products, and Dr. Guhana Du, vice chair of natural products, were also in the conference. The executive committee of the Indian Pharmacological Society, under the presidentship of Dr. Shiv Prakash Ratnam, also contributed significantly to the conference. In the conference, 6 oration lectures were delivered by prominent pharmacologists from India and abroad. Several symposia were addressed by renowned speakers on areas of natural products and chemistry and developments. There were several symposia addressed by eminent scientists on translational potential of natural products. The inaugural ceremony reflected the typical Indian tradition, and the guests of honor were the farmers from grassroots levels who were striving to protect biodiversity.
Namaste and good morning to all the distinguished scientists, professors, delegates from various parts of the world. My name is Dr. Varsha, an alumni of the prestigious 100-year-old NIN ICMR. Taking this opportunity to initiate this program with a very traditional puja which is done on the auspicious events like these. And I welcome you all to the 5th IUPHAR World Conference on the Pharmacology of Natural Products 2019, along with 51st Annual Conference of Indian Pharmacological Society, this being held at the prestigious ICMR NIN. Now, we shall begin the program with the lighting of the lamp. May I please request the dignitaries to kindly light the lamp, followed by the Saraswati Puja, who is the goddess of knowledge. good morning. Today, I am calling upon Dr. Vandana Singh, our first and only Ayurvedic doctor in the ICMR institutes, to inform us about the quotation of the conference logo, which is the Hetu Ling Aushadha Jnanam.
हेतु लिंग औषध ज्ञानम हेतु विकारो धातु वैषम्यम साम्यम प्रकृति रुच्यते सुख संज्ञक आरोग्यम विकारो दुखमेव च भौम्य आपे आग्नेय वायप्य पश्म पंच ऊष्माणम स नाभसा पंच आहार गुणान स्वान स्वान पार्थिवादि पचन्ति ही सप्तदेहि धातुवो द्विविधा पुनः यस स्वम अग्नीय पाकम यान्ति किट प्रसादवत लिंगम तस्मात् आतुरम परीक्षित प्रकृतितश्च विकृतितश्च सारतश्च सन्ननन्तश्च प्रमाणतश्च सात्म्यतश्च सत्वतश्च आहार शक्तितश्च व्यायाम शक्तितश्च वयश्चेति बल प्रमाण विशेष ग्रहण हेतु नास्ति रोगो विना दोषैर इस्मात् तस्मादि चक्षणः अनुक्तम अपि दोषाणाम लिंगे व्याधिरम उपचारित औषध योग मासा तुयो विद्याद देश काल उपपादितम पुरुषम वीक्ष सा गेयो विषग उत्तमम विशुद्ध चिकित्सा प्रयोग शम्येद व्याधि यो अन्यम अन्यमुदीर्येत नाशो विशुद्ध शुद्धत्तु शम्येत ना कोपेत. धन्यवाद.
Now, may I please welcome our dynamic women director, R. Hemalata, to please address the conference.
A very good morning and warm greetings. After the splendid welcome that has been given by the convener, organizing secretary, Dr. Dinesh Kumar, I think there is no need for further welcome. That was really great, Dr. Dinesh. I really appreciate you for your innovative approach. Nevertheless, I extend my warm welcome to all the delegates, friends from media, and all the dignitaries on the days. And I feel proud to host this important conference on pharmacology of natural products. In this, I thank the IUPHAR and also the IPS President and Secretary for giving this opportunity and also for supporting us in this endeavor. I also take this opportunity to thank our DG ICMR, the Secretary, Department of Health Research, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare for kindly extending full support to us in conducting this conference. So here, I also take this opportunity to appreciate the organizing secretary who is always very innovative and creative, and he has, for the first time, has extended welcome to the farmers who are actually the first citizens of the country. I'm really feeling very happy and proud about this. After all, they need this recognition. I once again give a round of applause to this. So here, to tell a few words about, we in NIN have been supporting the government constantly right from 1918 by providing evidence-based information on trends in nutrition status, trends in dietary intakes, and trends in program utilization to the government for programs and policy making. And also supporting them with basic studies and mechanistic studies. In addition to these, we have always been supporting with respect to environmental toxins like fluorosis, lead, toxicity, and also toxins from food like aflatoxins and other toxins like lityrosis, which is a neurotoxin. So these evidence-based information provided from NIN to the government has led to many policies and changes in programs as well as other implementations.
Dr. Balram Bhargav, our Director General ICMR, my Director Dr. Hemalata, Ingulf Michael Spading, and Chairman of WCP, NCP, and most important, my own colleagues, Professor Y.K. Gupta, Shiv Prakash, President, Secretary Dr. Kalakumar, and most big hands you have to give it to two farmers who are my guest of honor. This is the innovation which I wanted to do, and I could do it. And with the permission of my Director and Director General, that my two farmers who are there, left side to the Director General, the lady who is sitting has been awarded as the best woman farmer for her preparing the insecticide, pesticides, and she is the real farmer. I may like to also introduce in Telugu also. And to our Madam Sai, his name is Gangaram, but he changed his name to make it attractive as a Schini-Krishna. He has developed 80 varieties of different rice. And these rice seeds he is in possession of those rice seeds. And he is one of the person who developed the turmeric growing also. I belong to National Nizamabad, which is 175 kilometers away from this. When Michael Spedding was asking me, in fact, I would like to recall my Guruji, Dr. Kamala Krishna Swami, former director NIN, who introduced first time in the kinetics in NIN, and I worked with her. When Guru asked me, Dr. Kamala Krishna Swami, how to do the kinetics of the curcumin, then I started taking the literature out of it. Believe me, International Journal of Pharmacology, in which 1978 edition, the name of a turmeric is written as Curcuma longa lin Armoor. Armoor is a small village in Nizamabad district. And it is written something in 1978. So understand the colonial people, how much they have done research more than us to bring the Armoor name in the turmeric. So I thought that it is the best innovative idea to bring the farmers onto the dais as my guest of honor. Sir, I have called them. If they don't grow any plant, any product, then we all are not going to sit here, sir. So let us give a big clap to this guest of honor.
Ours is the largest professional body with about 4,786 members as on today.
This is a great moment for us to host this joint IUPHAR IPS conference in Hyderabad for the first time.
Hello everyone. That it is a great pleasure and honor for me, Chair of the Natural Products section, to welcome you to the 5th IUPHAR World Conference on the Pharmacology of Natural Products. This year's conference is a joint meeting with the 51st Annual Conference of the Indian Pharmacological Society. And we are very pleased having the opportunity of such a close collaboration. We are also grateful to the ICMR NIN to provide nice facilities with beautiful green surroundings to host the meeting in beautiful Hyderabad.
You have organized this World Congress of Pharmacology of Natural Products with your team. A lot of thanks for all your efforts to build up this excellent program, but also for your great help to get the international delegates to this place, which was not easy at all time. At this stage, thanks also a lot to the IUPHAR Subcommittee of Pharmacology of Natural Products, in particular to the IUPHAR Secretary General for their tremendous support to make this Congress a success. It's a great pleasure and honor to attend this particular Congress in the beautiful city of Hyderabad. It's the first time for me to be on this Congress of Pharmacology of Natural Products, but also to be in India. So it's a really impressive stay here. The discipline of pharmacology as a whole faces many challenges, but there's a lot of progress, of course. On the other side, we have still some insufficient and individual strongly varying response rates of a number of drugs in the treatment of a number of diseases. But through the better understanding of the molecular background of the diseases, however, novel targets and individual genetic signatures have been identified, allowing now a more precise therapy to achieve higher efficacy. But there's a strong need, of course, to identify those novel compounds, and here are with a huge treasure of natural products.
Dr. Bhargava, with a fantastic program on how to screen traditional medicines that was done all day with young students. So I think this has been the fruition, or another step, in our development of an international organization to look at traditional medicines and their molecular aspects. So I will stop there and just thank all the people that we've been able to work for. Thank also for the invitation to come and for our ensuring continued cooperations.
Of my mentor, Professor K.P. Bhargava, that we should have, in fact, from the first time I heard from him in 1970s about IUPHAR. And since then, this was our dream that we should have IUPHAR in India. where India is the leading country, where the natural products can become the drugs for masses with science, with established efficacy, safety, and affordability. And that's why this is a matter of great pride. So thanks. I think we have to create a system that the people in India, farmers in India, are encouraged to grow the medicinal plant of quality.
మాది తెలంగాణ రాష్ట్రం నిజామాబాద్ జిల్లా చక్రానపల్లి మండల్ చింతలూరు గ్రామం.
I belong to Nizamabad district in Telangana state, and Chintalur is my village.
నా పేరు నాగుల గంగారాం, నిక్నేమ్ చిన్ని కృష్ణుడు.
Nagula Gangaram is my name, and my nickname is Chinni Krishnudu. Chinni Krishnudu translates to, Krishna as a child. Bala Krishna. Yeah.
నేను చదివింది 6వ తరగతి. చిన్నప్పటి నుంచి వ్యవసాయం చేస్తున్నాను.
I just studied about till 6th grade, but I am involved in agriculture right from my childhood.
నేను ఇప్పటికీ ఈ లోకల్ వెరైటీలు 110 రకాలు పండిస్తున్నా.
As on today, I have about 110 varieties of local varieties of rice, which I have gathered from traditional growers across the country.
ఆ బియ్యము తెల్లగా, నల్లగా, ఎర్రగా, కలర్ డిఫరెన్స్ బియ్యంతో నేను తింటూ రైతుగా అదృష్టవంతంగా భావిస్తూ ఆనందంతో ఆహారం తింటూ ఆరోగ్యవంతుని అవుతున్నా.
So the colors of rice are many. It's white, it's purple, it's grey, it's black, and I have all these, and in my diet I use all these varieties of rice, and then I think I'm very fortunate to get these varieties of rice and improve my health.
మాది యాదాద్రి జిల్లా చౌటుపల్ మండలం పెద్దకొండూరు గ్రామం.
Yeah, I belong to Yadadri district, Peddakondur village, here in Telangana state.
నా పేరు రజిత. నేను 7th క్లాస్ వరకు చదువుకున్నాను.
I am Rajita. I studied only up to 7th grade.
మాది చిన్నప్పటి నుంచి వ్యవసాయ కుటుంబము. మేము రసాయనాలతోటి పండించే వాళ్ళము.
Ours is an agriculture family, and then we used to grow all the crops using a lot of chemicals.
2014లో నాకు పాలేకర్ గారి పుస్తకం ఒకతను తీసుకొచ్చి ఇచ్చాడు, ఇది చదువుకొని వ్యవసాయం చేయమని.
2014, somebody had given me Dr. Palekar's book and asked me to read it to practice agriculture.
ఆ పుస్తకం పూర్తిగా చదివాను. దానిలో పుస్తకం చదివిన తర్వాత మనం కెమికల్ లేకుండా ఏ విధంగా పండించవచ్చు అనేది పూర్తిగా అందులో రాసింది.
I read the book from all pages of the book from end to end, and then I realized how one can do agriculture without using chemicals.
అవి పండించిన తర్వాత కొంచెం మార్కెట్ విషయంలో సమస్య అనేది కొంచెం ఫస్ట్ టైంలో ఎదురైంది. కానీ ఇప్పుడు గ్రామ భారతి నుంచి అలాంటి ఇబ్బంది లేకుండా ఎప్పుడైతే పంట వస్తుందో వచ్చినప్పుడు గ్రామ భారతి నుంచి వాళ్ళు పంట తీసేసుకుంటున్నారు సార్.
Okay. Earlier we had little difficulty in actually finding markets for our kind of products, but now with the help of Grama Bharati, which is a village level help for actually marketing the agriculture produce, it has been very helpful for us. Whatever products we grow are being taken by Gram Bharati. The produce that they grow is being taken by Gram Bharati.
ఒక్క ఆవుతోటి 30 ఎకరాల వరకు సాగు చేయవచ్చు.
So we've used Panchagavya using the products from the cow, and with help of one cow, about 30 acres of land agriculture can be done on about 30 acres of land.
నిజంగా ఎక్కడో ఊర్లో ఉండి ఒక రైతుగా వ్యవసాయం చేసి మమ్మల్ని ఇంత దూరం తీసుకొచ్చినందుకు చాలా థ్యాంక్ యూ సార్ మీకు.
Thanks to sir for actually bringing us all the way from the villages that we are in to such a big dais to sit along with all the dignitaries, and then thank you a lot for giving this opportunity.
Honorable dignitaries on the dais. First of all, I like to thank Dr. Dinesh Kumar for organizing. So, Dr. Dinesh Kumar, Dr. Hemlata for hosting this at this institute. And I also welcome Dr. Kalakumar, Dr. Shiv Prakash Ratnam, Dr. Valerie, Dr. Ingolf, and the running Dr. Michael Spedding, better known as Michael Speeding, Dr. Y.K. Gupta, my my mentor as well, and ladies and gentlemen, illuminaries in the audience, the Chinese delegation, and friends. I think this is a huge honor to welcome everyone to this 5th IUPHAR World Congress on the pharmacology of natural products. India is known for its natural products. China is known for its natural products. And therefore, the two countries working together under the banner of the International Union of Pharmacology, Indian Pharmacological Society, with the theme, Natural Products for Healthy Aging. Now, aging has become a huge problem of most part of the Western world, and also India is heading towards that. China has already reached there. Japan is life expectancy 83, 84. Countries like Sweden is 82, 83. So we are all, that's the average life expectancy. So we are heading for an aging population, and healthy aging remains the most important aspect that we need to look at, learn from old civilizations like India and China, how to take care of the elderly in terms of their natural products that they have been using and the products that have been able to prevent a disease. Now, at the outset, I would also like to say that pharmacology runs in my veins, because my father was a pharmacologist, and he had done a PhD with Professor Goodman, and Dr. Y.K. Gupta will talk more about him being his student. But I remember as a child that there was first the Association of Physiologists and Pharmacologists of India, and the Indian Pharmacological Society was separated, who was at that time the founder president of the of the IUPHAR from Karolinska Institute, and he had described the H2 receptors, and that led to the cimetidine and ranitidine and other drug development. And he gave me a replica of the Nobel medal, which I still have in silver, small one. That was in 1969 or 68. So that's why I say pharmacology runs in my veins. But having said that, India has traditionally had some excellent pharmacologists. Much before that, Sir Ramnath Chopra was one of them. And then we had certain natural products which actually made it to the market and made, for example, Rauwolfia as an antihypertensive was actually demonstrated in the late 30s and the early 40s by good clinical trials at that point in time, and it was demonstrated to be an antihypertensive medication. We have now been looking at osimum, the sacred basil, as adaptogen, and a lot of work has gone into that as well. So many natural products developed and discovered in India. Having said that, India has done phenomenally well in generic products, and we have really conquered the world as far as generics. Now, with the recent law of the phytopharmaceutical mode, which is approved by the US FDA in 2005 and by the Indian government in 2015 or 16, I think we have to catch up for lost time and use the phytopharmaceutical mode, wherein we demonstrate 4 active ingredients and are able to get that product approved right up to the FDA level. Bypass surgery, oblique stenting in patients with severe ischemia or moderate ischemia, and that will go a long way in medical treatment. So I think long live pharmacology, long live IUPHAR, long live IUPS, long live NIN, long live ICMR. All the best. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, as Dr. Dinesh mentioned, that this new oration is a Lifetime Achievement Award given to pharmacologist or allied discipline every alternate year, one time to international scientists and one time for Indian scientists, which was the toughest at that time to get admission in King George Medical College. And he became the student. And fortunately, I also graduated from the same college, following his footpath. The journey of excellence continued. He joined University of Utah as for doing PhD and getting the training in pharmacology. So now you see the journey is not like this, the journey was like this. And that is what you see. The journey, the person he is influenced, I think there should not be, there would not be, there must not be any person who does not know this personality. The key research contribution of Professor Bhargava was tremendous, but just a few. He was the first person to tell us that these are the drugs which can use as a pharmacological tool to identify the receptors in the brain, to identify the functioning of the peripheral system, blood pressure, thermoregulation, vomiting, and that's what you see the area where he worked on the cardiovascular functions. On hypertension, arrhythmias, what is the central mechanism of thermoregulation? Of my interest, which I followed, was the vomiting. How you were the first person to tell me that this is the chemoreceptor trigger zone in the area, in the floor of the fourth ventricle. I remember the line, what he used to tell me repeatedly. And then discovering the receptors, enkephalin receptor, histamine receptor, 5-HT receptors, and NK4, NK receptors, which are now the basis of the current modern antiemetic drugs. And also neuroendocrine mechanism, psychopharmacology, the first lab in India to establish neuropharmacology or psychopharmacology lab. In this context, he was the first person to start a systematic study along with Dr. Vaidya and Dr. U.K. Sheth, clinical pharmacologists, on Indian medicinal plants. You can see that Professor Bhargava, the Ralphia story, he worked on as his worthy son, cardiologist now, mentioned about how the Ralphia story, and he published that in JPET and these two findings. And I must tell you here, Professor Bhargava was very fond of publishing in two journals. One is British Journal of Pharmacology, and the other is JPET. And of course, he published in large spectrum of international journals. And the result is all of his students, including me, have several publications in British Journal of Pharmacology. Not that because we prefer that journal, but because we become biased to that journal because of my guide. And that's what it is. This is the archival, and which I borrowed it from his son. This is the PhD degree, and you can see the signature of Professor H.L. Borisan, who was the chairman of the lab, the Goodman, and a couple of others. I think this is a document which each pharmacology students must preserve as an archiving, as an inspiration to them. He also taught us that not only that you are doing with the modern technique, the science into that, but it's also important that how you collect, how you collate, and how you interpret the already ancient literature, whether it is in Sanskrit or whether it is in different language, and what is the importance of correct translation. As I mentioned yesterday, many times the translation becomes adulterated, and then the knowledge becomes complex. And that is why translation from the ancient language, correlating that with the current, is very important. That is what is still valid and still very important. That's what my friend Vipin also mentioned in the beginning. You see, he worked with the Professor Wintrobe. I do not think that anybody requires name or with Professor Bhargava as the first editor of Indian Journal of Pharmacology. And that is what the birth of Indian Pharmacological Society. You can see Professor Bhargava with a token badge here, and Professor U.K. Sheth sitting next to him. These are the stalwarts. Professor Govindachari, who was again the president at one time and the founder of Indian Pharmacological Society. These are the archiving picture. And you can see that this is the KPB, we usually call as Professor K.P. Bhargava. He is not in here, but he has clicked this picture. You can see Professor Uvnas of Karolinska Institute, who was the chairman of the Nobel Committee and who was fond of Professor K.P. Bhargava. That's why he used to come to Indian Pharmacological Society almost every year. And that was the connection where IUPHAR and Indian Pharmacology established at that time. This is Professor K.P. Bhargava, UK SAIT, as he said, and Professor Turner, R.C. Saxena, they first established clinical pharmacology in India. And that is, you can see the clinical pharmacology from that stage, from UK SAIT, Professor Bhargava, and now it has becoming one of the most important disciplines in. These are the important landmark publications of Professor Bhargava in Nature and in Science. And what he's concluded is, let us move from discovery science to solution science. That was the time in 70s when he quoted this. And today we are talking of a translational pharmacology, translational science. And then see the vision of the person at that time. Michael Spedding, he is the fortunate person to get this first prestigious lifetime achievement called as a Professor K.P. Bhargava Oration Award. Thank you very much.
Jean Calment is the oldest person at 123, and I think so my answer, no, unless Ayush, of course, can produce. So what I wanted to do is to show precise models of aging related to human evolution, diet, and sport, some exceptional aging and reasons, and also to quickly, as I said, it's going to be a film, go in the mechanism study recently for therapeutic benefit in aging. Ingolf produced a slide which I liked. I've slightly modified it. Genes load the gun, environment, inflammation, and aging pull the trigger. I thank you very much. I'm really quite overcome with this. So I hope, therefore, I can deliver my talk quickly and rapidly, and will answer your questions. Because seeing the slides about what he taught his students and what his values were are exactly inherent to what I try to do myself. And the words were almost the same as in the slides that I give to students for preparing their future life, which I must have now given to 2,500 students around the world. So, and also the other thing was that he said, what you want is research solutions. My company is called Spedding Research Solutions, because you can have the questions, but you need the solutions. And so I've actually prepared a talk, which I hope will be adequate for you, because I've thought about it quite hard, and it's going to be slightly different from a talk that you would normally get, because it was to think about how to start this conference, Natural Medicines for Healthy Aging, from molecular targets to therapy. Well, there's a complete revolution in aging research. There are now some very precise markers, but they're not the ones you think they are. So I can't give you the key for avoiding aging, because I would do it, but I can show you how to look for it. So I was going to do, in a film almost, a review of the molecular levers which are involved in aging, and how you can therefore test them for natural products. Because those levers are becoming apparent. Some of them you can't get round. And so this talk, I'm going to give quite a lot of slides, but in a film. I won't stop over them. I'll try and go quickly so you can have lunch. But I wanted to say what I've discovered. And also, I go back a long way in pharmacology. And to point out for drug discovery, my PhD supervisor, because we always give credits to your mentors, was the first pharmacologist head of Glaxo. And with 40 pharmacologists, he discovered drugs which have sold cumulatively for £650 billion. All of the asthma drugs, all of the steroids, the ranitidine, the sumatriptan was in his group. And that was done with phenotypical screening when we knew nothing of what we know now. So that pharmacology discovered it. So I think it's a big important issue. So I'm going to go very quickly, and there'll be bits that I don't understand even. Sorry. No, it's not. Yeah, okay, thanks. Yeah. I just want to point out that this is the World Health Organization data, which you obviously know, that blue is non-communicable diseases for deaths in 2017, red is communicable, green is accidents. The depth of color indicates the way in which it's developing. And India is now moving away from the communicable diseases, such as TB, diarrhea, for ischemic heart disease and stroke, and beginning to start on Alzheimer's and diabetes. And this means that we're beginning to see really the impact of aging-related diseases. And this was a slide I gave when I came last time, how to situate Ayush with new chemical entities. How to situate Ayush with new chemical entities, evidence-based medicine. And you've got to address the philosophy, the variables, what we don't know, education, world experts such as this meeting, define simple messages propagated on websites. You need money to do it, and I propose syntegrating funding in Europe and the US with Indian funding, and I would hope that IUPHAR can be a lever in this respect. So this is an over-the-top slide, but I want to make a point that there are very many major companies which are publishing a great deal in very important papers because they get an awful lot of money from Californian or Boston entrepreneurs who then like to think that they could live for a very long time. And this gives them a lot of money to give large papers in Nature, which may not necessarily reflect the simpler systems that we're dealing with. Jean Calment is the oldest person at 123, and I think so my answer, no, unless Ayush, of course, can produce. So what I wanted to do is to show precise models of aging related to human evolution, diet, and sport, some exceptional aging and reasons, and also to quickly, as I said, it's going to be a film, go in the mechanism study recently for therapeutic benefit in aging, so which actually, and I'm going to obviously go over these very quickly, but pointing out the issues which can be testable and how these interact with aging and lessons for healthcare. Right? So there's an awful lot of mechanisms there. Those are the mechanisms which are involved, and I'll try and show you why. Okay, I've got it. So, and Ingolf produced a slide which I liked. I've slightly modified it. Genes load the gun, environment, inflammation, and aging pull the trigger. I want to point out that some trees can live 5,000 years, but they don't do very much. This is a Proteus anginus is a little eel that lives blind in a cold cave for 90 years, eats every 3 months, sex every 10 years, very little movement. As opposed to human beings such as, well, myself, I'm 70 years old, I've run 115,000 kilometers, and my H-index has just started to increase massively at the end of my life. So it's slightly different from living for 90 years in a cave. I'm not going to refer much to C. elegans research, because I think there's an issue that you can double lifespan, but the dour state of C. elegans doesn't give you the same work. I think you need to include the work level in the lifespan for it to be relevant to humans. Now, there are all sorts of protective mechanisms and multiple aging mechanisms. I'm not going to go through this slide, but I'm going to cover a few of them. But first of all, we need to know how we got to be an animal that can live for at least 70 years with a high energy output. And that comes from evolution. Now, I realize there may be some people in the room that don't really believe in the classic systems of evolution, but Bramble and Lieberman claimed there was good evidence, that the fossil evidence, that endurance running is a derived capability of Homo sapiens, originally about 2 to 3 million years ago, and just over 1 million years, it was instrumental in the evolution of the human body form, whereby in Africa, due to a change in the climate, we would walk, run to heat shock prey at midday, because lions are much faster than us and hunt at night or in the morning. So midday was the only evolutionary niche left when it's hot, and we diet switched from leaves and fruit to meat, bone marrow, lipids, and natural products. And we had to increase our VO2 max about 3-fold compared to non-human primates, which is a massive change. And the pharmaceutical industry don't take account of that. So we actually published a little commentary in Nature. Why the failures in phase 2? Because humans are different to a certain extent. We had this metabolic evolution of brain size and circuits, and the recent evolution over 200K years to occupy all the planetary niches, which is not Darwinian, it must be SNPs, genetics, diet. hides one, and then the modern lifestyle and diet and modern diseases give a further problem for healthcare. And exercise has been shown to increase brain-derived neurotrophic factor in the brain, which increases metabolism. And I've actually worked on this quite a lot when I was running psychiatric programs in Servier's research center. I just want to point this, you don't need to read this, but I can talk to you about it. This is a list of all the changes which we made about the changes in human beings from non-human primates, which are immense and which actually are responsible for several modern diseases. We changed from primates, which were non-human primates in trees, which were just the money in the modern diseases, such as your hips, your knees, the cardiovascular effects, are due to changes which are recent. And my own work on motor neuron disease, which I'll present on tomorrow, about changes in neuromuscular junctions, is also critical. So many diseases are due recently, so there's a limited capacity for animals to actually to mimic that under all circumstances. There's heat tolerance as well, and but also delayed brain development with a massive energy importance, and hence greater potential longevity with delayed aging. So what are the molecular drivers behind that evolutionary change? Because that would give you the effects. And one of the, here, with Jean-Luc Wolfander is here because I adore metabolomics, and Kaitovich has shown that the organization, in a series of papers, that the organization evolution of the lipidome is actually crucial, and lipid metabolism is actually a critical part of those metabolic changes. He's also published there's an exceptional evolutionary divergence of human muscle and brain compared to non-human primates, which parallels our relative uniqueness. He claimed that it might have been we sacrificed muscle strength for brain metabolism, but it's also, I think, it's developing muscular endurance rather than strength. And there's now good evidence for a metabolic acceleration compared to other non-human primates, particularly driven by fat. We've also got to remember, this is a slide from a review I made, the brain's the absolute limit of its energy supply. Anybody wanting to stop me talking could just throttle me for a minute or so, and that's it. And that's because we use a whole series of, which we explored when I was in charge of a neuroscience research center, of strategies to modify signaling and energy use. And those strategies are such that we change the firing rate for nerves. They can't hold 100 hertz all the time. And frequently, it's due, the changes in frequency you see are also due to protect energy, and also GABA and glutamate are fuels. Blood flow only increased about 50% in response to demand, and we've actually been able to show that activity-dependent neurotrophins are also used to control energy supply. Hence, mitochondria will be important. I've got to go back to evolution even further. There's two papers come out, one a major one in Nature, saying that you can actually have the Krebs cycle without life, because in the primeval slime of sulfur and the other aspects, you can actually make chemical reactions to give a non-enzymatic Krebs cycle precursors and have many of the aspects of Krebs cycle without life. So if Krebs cycle was without life, you can see why it's so important to all of us, because that is chemically, it is partially possible to have a Krebs cycle. So that, in the right circumstances. So that means that puts how we develop it at a very critical point, which as an athlete, I can assure you I know. So therefore, 25 years ago, we did some of the first expression experiments with brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is the main activity-dependent neurotrophin. So I'm drawn to that because it's activity-dependent, and it's a neurotrophin, so therefore it goes where the energy is. And we found straight away that it increases the expression of cytochrome C oxidase, ATP synthase, subunit 6, and NADH dehydrogenases. Now, I love those because straight away, those are the three rate-limiting enzymes in the cycle of Krebs. They're calcium-dependent and thiamine-dependent. And Professor Bhargava will know calcium increases heart work and also energy by stimulating the mitochondria. And I worked with Jim McCormack, who actually showed that. So immediately I thought, this means you've got activity-dependent neurotrophin, which is then modifying Krebs cycle to put in the energy appropriate to increase neuronal work. We developed, that's a completely different story, but a lovely one, an antidepressant which is on the market, increases the expression of the same enzymes. So we therefore made brain this obviously is quite difficult to look at in terms of the nerves, etc., mitochondria, in terms of using oxygen electrodes to look at exactly what's happening in the mitochondria. So we therefore made synaptic preparations which resemble that a bit, you've got the mitochondria, etc., and looked at what was happening with BDNF, brain-derived, and it's a long story, we've got several papers, and effectively brain-derived neurotrophic factor in a concentration-dependent manner was increasing the respiratory coupling index, which is the efficiency of brain mitochondria. And this has been subsequently developed by other people, but we showed that this was due to the classic neurotrophic pathway. You need TrkB, MAP kinase, and then it goes into BCL2 and VDAC, which is the classic way of mitochondrial stimulation. And can we block it? And the increase of the pointer's not working very well. The increase of yes, no, it doesn't come across. The increase of respiratory coupling index caused by BDNF is blocked by Abbott 737 in a dose-dependent manner at exact concentrations which it blocks BCL2. BCL2 going in is one of the critical factors in the mitochondria and modifying apoptosis in the mitochondria. And as you'll see later, a critical issue for senolytics. And it's also blocked by inflammation, interleukin-1 beta. So the main drive is actually, for a neurotrophic drive, is blocked by inflammation and also BCL2. This little paper caused some interest in some very serious people, and a friend of mine, Moses Chow, who was the president of the American Society of Neuroscience, then went a step further and showed that beta-hydroxybutyrate and keto acids, which are the brain energy source used in fasting and exercise, and you may remember that your ancestors, when they were hunting beef or zebra or whatever in the steppe, or in the African savannah, would have been starved, that it's a main energy source, keto acids, liver produces 150 grams a day. It's also been shown to be very neuroprotective and inhibits inflammasome formation and produced in fasting exercise, and it's neuroprotective. Well, they showed that beta-hydroxybutyrate acts specifically HDAC 2 and 3, activating the BDNF promoters. So that means running starved would also increase BDNF, and also BDNF comes from neuromuscular junctions as well. And so this has actually been, and intermittent fasting does the same. So therefore you have a way, possibly, it's not entirely proved, we have to evolve somebody else to be able to show it, whereby hunting starved in a cooperative activity, which would then stimulate brain activity, would be important for evolution. And what is more, we've showed that I'm really proud of, the hippocampus and medial frontal cortex is a key area for psychiatric research, which we've got drugs which will restore. It's got a direct link, which we worked on for about 10 papers. And it's important for declarative memory consolidation. It's blocked by steroids, so it's a very key area, and BDNF is crucial to this particular circuit. It's also important for the neuronal mechanisms in foraging, because it modifies key decision making. So therefore, the mitochondrial aspects can be pivotal in neurodegenerative and potentially psychiatric disorders. I can give you about 10 papers about psychiatric disorders, but this is a review we made in the British Journal of Pharmacology. And one of the key things that we brought out, this is not our findings, but the brown line on the left, going down to 0 almost, is glucose oxidation in the hippocampus of Alzheimer patients. So the metabolic aspects are actually one of the key aspects which develop very early, and I actually think that the metabolic aspects in Alzheimer's are absolutely critical. But in order to be able to go ahead and look further, we need a precise model of human aging. Everybody's mothers, fathers have got different aspects of aging. It's very scattered. So how can you get a precise model of what the human beings are capable of? Well, here it comes for the fact that I'm a runner, and I work with the French sports group, INSEP. So Moore published in 75 that track and field records relate to age and running speed. And we've published 3 papers on the age-performance relationship. Are we reaching the limits of human Homo sapiens? Because the 2 bottom graphs, which I can't point out to you, I'm afraid, show that world records of in 100 meters, shot put, and discus have actually plateaued out over the last 20, 30 years. There's small increases, but not very much. But also, the age records for 100, there are many world age records for sports up to the age of almost 100. So we looked at these and analyzed them, and it's some of the most amazing data I've ever been associated with. So this is my PhD students shared with INSEP, Adrian and Mark. This shows the age records for 100 meters in meters per second, on the left, and with age. And for the 800 meters in marathon, obviously it's in meters per second, so that you run 100 meters faster than a marathon, but the data is absolutely incredibly precise, because this is the entire human race's capacity up till now. All races, all diets. The best people ever to run 100 meters. And this gives an entire purification of the data. And it's absolutely clean. And what is more, the data fit 2 simple exponentials, one going up and one going down. So this is actually really quite incredible. And so you're looking at this and say, well, Michael, you're old now, you must be finished. And so there is an excuse. I've got something which is a little bit of a let out for me anyway. So this is actually, I'm not on this review, but I've got to show you. This shows on the left for men and for all the different distances of Olympics for the age records, which shows it carries all the way through. I'm sorry, if I had a pointer, it'd be easier. The chess actually shows that there is the same decline, but the other scores go down to 0. Chess at 80 years old, the score is 2,400, which is still an international grandmaster. So that means I can continue up to the age of 80 to bluff people cerebrally, even if I can't run very fast. But that's a really important finding, because it shows, and face recognition goes the same, so the physical aspects can go first. Now, we also looked at C. elegans in electric field, mice, horses, and greyhounds, and the same response holds, but the difference is that their lifespan is short. Human beings have the same relationship. Now, this has got 2 implications. One, if it's a factor of life, we're not going to get out of it, because it's all life, so we're not easily going to get drugs which are going to really extend it. 2, human beings are therefore partially optimized because we can live for this long time, and this has got quite good implications. I want to point out that India can be very proud of itself, because for the marathon, we have an exceptional performance, because you can look at exceptional performances. Fauja Singh, at age 102, that's a photograph of him on the right. He's the world record holder at 100 years old, and that he attributes his physical fitness and longevity, no smoking alcohol, simple vegetarian diet, fulka dal, green vegetables, yogurt and milk, no fried food, lots of water and tea. I go to bed early, taking the name of my God, as I don't want all those negative thoughts crossing my mind. Right? So I think Ayush has got some benefit there. So, and this is the best example of human beings at age running. So he only started at 80, though, and came for his first track session in a suit. For cycling, Robert Marshall is now 107. He's been told to stop. Okay, he did 22.5 kilometers at 105 years old in an hour, and his diet is actually quite similar. And he actually increased his VO2 max. In terms of, these are the best. Can it also apply to others, such as more normal athletes, such as myself? Right, well, this is myself as I was younger. I'm now 70 years old, and I've been at 15% of world record for my age at 5,000 meters for 45 years. And so, but you can see, I can't get out of this decline. I know how to train. I am absolutely on the line. My variance, less than 1%. The R for some of these events, particularly the VO2 max related one, is 0.99. So this relationship is describing almost exactly the decline in human performance of the best humans over age. My PhD student with great glee said, Dr. Spedding, you're going to die between 96 and 104, assuming you don't get cancer or heart disease. So I can arrange, but this gives you time to arrange the party. Because of the major implications, it's almost the second law of thermodynamics. We haven't proved it yet. It's inescapable. Its implications for healthcare. And it's also, towards the end, it's dangerous to stress a disintegrating system. So for the last years, I take a beta blocker now to avoid that. So you've got to use it or lose it, but don't stress a disintegrated system. This goes in parallel with Barseleye's data showing redundancy of diseases with aging, that all diseases go up with age, and if one doesn't get you, another will, but the relationship is pretty similar. Mathematically, we're not quite shown it yet, but it really means that the substratum is the change, probably in energy, because VO2 max goes down exactly, which is mitochondrial. There's one other highly, and this is a real opening for you all and for this research center. Steve Horvath has shown that epigenetic clocks are accurate for biological age and DNA methylation levels. So he published in a landmark paper in 2011, 353 markers of DNA methylation of CpG nucleotides, which is now used clinically worldwide with an R 0.96 for age and a median error of 3 years for humans and centenarians aged later. And it predicts animal age. It's got a high ticking rate during growth, and then the same thing that we really remark, a constant ticking rate later on. Relatively weak impact on epigenetic age, but even Olympic runners will give you 7 years. Okay, so my running friends starting to die off as well, but it's with a better life expectancy, hopefully. This is reflecting DNA spontaneous damage, not repaired properly. I would like to, so what's the epigenetic clocks measuring? Well, one thing is that the metabolic control of epigenetics is quite crucial, and Krebs cycle metabolites are required for writing epigenetic marks. And so this, I think, and they clearly distinguish the energy cell of the state, energy state of the cell for epigenetic modulation. So now you're all looking for which epigenetic markers you should look at. I haven't got time to go into that, but IUPHAR has. So we published 3 years ago the best guide to epigenetic pathways and the best drugs at the time, which is now 3 years out of date. But those are that's by the world. We've got, IUPHAR's got, in terms of subcommittees for targets, we've got 100 subcommittees of about 800 scientists. And the epigenetic group published the epigenetic targets, the best ligands, and therefore that is therefore a crucial reference, so you can go away and look if your favorite natural product is on which particular epigenetic pathway. But the beta-hydroxybutyrate is a key marker for BDNF. The other marker for an athlete is lactate. Nature, I just had to scan this because it just came out 2 weeks ago, that gene expression by histone lactylation is actually another key control of epigenetic markers, and exercise can bring benefit through direct metabolites, lactate receptors, increasing hippocampus and cortex, and the astrocyte neuronal lactate shuffle, which is absolutely crucial. So, therefore, the epigenetic aspects are crucial, and lactate and the other metabolites are important. What's happening then when we do get fat and we're not? Well, this is another metabolomic paper which has just come out recently by Jeff Idle, who's another expert metabolomic scientist, who's looked at GC, spectrometry of energy metabolism in high-fat diet obese mice. And on the right, H, the blue is H, which is high-fat diet, C is control, and you can see that lactate is reduced, and many of the other Krebs cycle intermediates, which would be critical, are actually therefore also reduced under a high-fat diet associated with a weight gain. So again, Krebs might be a critical player in that. And when you do it the other way around and look at the gene expression signatures associated with lifespan expansion, you won't be able to see this very well, but it's the top one is which is crucial, the reactome TCA cycle and respiratory electron support, oxidative phosphorylation, then Parkinson's, cellular disease, Huntington's, fatty acid oxidation, fatty acid metabolism. So it's the same molecular markers. So that's the key issue. I want to go very quickly over the other aspects from a cell review from people that I invited to a research meeting on longevity, Madio and Cremer, genomic instability, telomere attrition, epigenetic alterations, and loss of proteostasis. Dysregulated nutrient sensing, mitochondrial dysfunction, senescence, stem cell exhaustion, and altered intercellular communication. So, Dinesh, how much more time have I got? 5, 10? Okay, so I'll go. The metabolic controls of longevity are written down by Cremer, involve a lot of metabolic aspects, branched amino acid mix, butyrate supplementation, glucosamine, metformin, nicotinamide, rapamycin, resveratrol, spermidine, etc. And of course, the recent microbiome aspects from the are quite interesting, because the first compound to be registered for Alzheimer's in the last 20 years was registered last month in China from seaweed to Alzheimer's disease, GV971, which by modifying the microbiome changes inflammation in the brain and then energy metabolism. Very quickly, DNA repair is a major cause of aging responsible for neurodegeneration proteinopathies, and I've worked with Jan Hoijmakers. There are constant about 10 to 100,000 lesions per day per cell in DNA repair. So any effect on the repair genes gives you shortening of life. And say cocaine syndrome is a multisystem disorder with dwarfism, etc. Just lack of DNA repair gives you remarkable deficits in effectively life expectancy. And also a point is also there's 40 by the time with aging. 40% of RNA polymerism in aged cells stalled. So longer genes show greater transcriptional. So we're getting a large amount of difficulties. And DNA repair is really critical. Hoijmakers is actually doing an experiment on calorie restriction, which is validated in animal models of DNA repair. And he's got a patient, Emma, with horrible mutations in impaired nucleotide excision repair, hardly speak or walk, and with calorie restriction has now been able to make marked improvements. There are also somatic genetic mutations. Clonal hematopoiesis of indeterminate potential is somatic random mutations in hematopoietic stem cells. So you get clones of mutant leukocytes, which doubles coronary heart risk. And these somatic mutations may, in later life, comprise a large proportion of blood, which gives great difficulties and risk factors. So our total mutations, either somatic or not, are actually accumulating and are very difficult to fight. And there may be a particular way in which these are recognized as self or non-self, because Francesca showed the immune system recognizes self or non-self. The new science coming out on interferonopathies, which I've proposed for a while, whereby mutations are recognized as non-self in dendritic cells by, if you have all these mutations locally, then the dendritic cells and the endosomes of them have TLR7 and 9 giving inflammation, releasing interferons. And plasmacytoid dendritic cells are very few cells, 4 or 5 of them can cluster around viruses or cells with mutations and liberate massive quantities of interferons locally, which demyelate, and it's interferon alpha. So this is actually a way in which the endogenous defense systems against viruses later on, as we mutate, can again work against us. So that's a very nasty thing for the future. Senescence and senolytics, I'm going to do in 2 slides very quickly. We can get senescent cells, because if we've got all this cancer formation, we need to dampen it down. And if you don't, so therefore you can make cells senescent, so they go into replicative arrest. And these are marked by BGAL and by blocking cyclin kinase. And they also, they're very specific cells and have an impact of senescence-associated secretory phenotype, which is inflammatory. So you've got 2 things going on. The cells become senescent, and they also liberate SASPs, inflammatory. Also upregulated to stop them apoptosing is BCL2 and BCLXL, which, as I've shown you before, is rather important. And it's got a very strange link with inflammation. That's something that's a very interesting area to work on, because senescent cells stopped producing inflammatory factors with BCL2. And the new, so senolytics are therefore critical. So therefore you could obviously apply a tyrosine kinase inhibitor with quercetin, which is being looked at in the clinic. And a new way for senolytics is using BCL2 antagonists, which will then stop the apoptosis which will allow the apoptosis by blocking the effects of BCL2. With my aged body, I'm not sure if I can kill off all of my senolytic cells, senescent cells, without having major side effects. But it's nevertheless, it's a very interesting area, which Valerie is going to talk about later on. I won't go into that. NAD is also critical, whereby you may be able to modify nicotinamide riboside. Chronobiology, if you've got a disintegrating system, you need it to be synchronized. And one of the key things is sleep. And melatonin is a critical actor. And we at Servier developed agomelatine as the first new antidepressant for a long period. And it's actually secreted into the blood at night, crucial for sleep, but it's also secreted from the into the third ventricle, because the pineal gland has got a little leak in it, which puts it in the third ventricle, which then gives it directly into the brain at 1,000-fold. It's neuroprotective, and we were able to show in research in sleep, because my research took a U-turn, that melatonin was very antidepressant. And in sheep, you can actually look in the CSF and show that melatonin is high in the plasma, but it's 10 to 1,000-fold higher in the CSF. That's critical for arranging chronobiology and synchronizing. And the other aspect is now we realize that A-beta is actually lost as a sort of from the brain during sleep by oscillations of the CSF. And so therefore improving sleep will therefore also be critically affect the way in which you get rid of amyloid. But last reason is also muscle, because when you have barrier breakdown, which can be affected by surgery, you therefore have a situation where in critically ill patients, barrier breakdown occurs, and this can then cause massive inflammation and muscle weakness. So it's actually a cause of frailty, and my doctor won't send me for any surgery because his patients come back so bad. And that's associated also with any aging, loss of skeletal muscle mitochondrial function, and we've been able to show that in motor neuron disease, that therefore is critical in terms of loss of, that we looked at muscle and nerve of our animal models of motor neuron disease, and what happens if you put the changes in a KEG disease situation, you get a parallelism with Q value of 10 to the minus 15 for muscle changes in a neurodegenerative disorder of motor neuron disease of loss of Parkinson's disease, Parkinson's oxidase phosphorylation, Alzheimer's disease, and Huntington's. So muscle mitochondria are actually critical. And it's possible the pharmaceutical industry have been better looking at muscle, which I try and keep going, rather than brain in terms of what's actually important, because the muscle signals to the brain. And therefore, one of the key things in the future will be polyphenols and how these actually interact. And frequently absorbed as glycones and glycosylated. The flavonoid intake is critical. But one of the things which we didn't mention yesterday, with chronobiology and with meals, you can have a fatty meal, but frequently a lot of people have now shown that natural products after the fatty meal later will actually improve its acceptability. And that's something whereby the timing of flavonoids is actually crucial. And we now got computationally driven analysis of which polyphenols are acting with which proteins, and which, so that's an area whereby you can then identify which polyphenols are important molecularly. And I'll finish with the fact that calorie restriction mimetics are now being looked at in terms of research. This is, again, Guido Kremer's research. I actually believe that calorie restriction for animals doesn't relate completely to calorie restriction for humans. Because if we evolved to run, we evolved to run with beta-hydroxybutyrate and keto acids. And all you need, so I actually have a thing which I actually use as an athlete and also have recommended to people, that has worked personally, is just sleeping as you're fasting, get up late on a Sunday, so you're still fasted, run 2 hours, and that gives you enormous metabolic change, and I'm sure that is as good as calorie restriction, because calorie restriction can actually have major negative effects, but if you fast, utilize beta-hydroxybutyrate, possibly to stimulate your BDNF, then it's a very simple way, and a way which is easy to fit into our lives, of giving you a time of calorie restriction and then exercise on top of that can then give you an effect. It's the reason why my weight is the same for the last 45 years. So I've got autophagy is very good, but why not a IUPHAR database on natural product drug targets? Because that is ready now. Oh, sorry, that's not gone through. It didn't go so quick. Why not one on natural product drug targets? Because there we've got all the drug targets in our databases. We just need to add the natural products. Can you use this for new drug discovery? This is a little bit of my talk tomorrow in 30 seconds. Yes, if you believe that motor neuron disease is an impossible disease, therefore what we did was something quite different. We took all of these aspects I've talked to you before. We looked at the mitochondria and lipids in superoxide dismutase 1 mice at end stage and early stage. We looked at 3,000 different lipids, and we found data which were mind-boggling. They'd metabolized nearly all their triglycerides at the end stage, right? So that if you believe it's a lipid disease, running is, you need lipids, they metabolize nearly all the triglycerides at the end stage. Pre-symptomatically, they had got a specific lesion in ceramide, glucosylceramide. Ceramide synthases are longevity-associated genes in yeast. A specific lesion in glucosylceramidase. We use phenotypical screens and other models to find a specific modulator of the subtypes of glucosylceramidase, because that's a quite complicated story, to find a generic drug which we've then got orphan drug designation for motor neuron disease, and is now preparing the phase 2 trials. So a completely different hypothesis, driven by metabolomics, driven by evolution, to get a new way in, based on metabolism. So the only other thing is that you can get functional connectivity in the default mode with useful in super aging with the same brain circuits of the BDNF. Habitual tea drinking modulates brain efficiency, so I propose that we connect now with over tea. I have personal recommendations I can give you later on, but I think my message is look at evolution, look at those molecular targets with natural products in a different way, and you'll be able to catch up in a very few years where drug discovery, classically done in states, etc., has frequently failed, because you can put things together which are phenotypical, and go back to what Roy Britton did for Glaxo with discovering all of those drugs, but using now the right type of model in those multiple molecular aspects. But you won't get aging beyond 100 or so regularly, apart from a few people, because it's ingrained and I can't get out of that decline.
I would like to take a different perspective of therapeutic targeting. It's a wonderful quotation by Professor Jones. The great sin against the human spirit is closure against the diversity and variety of experience, and narrow dogmatism that insists on the absolute and exclusive validity of some particular language and the particular version of reality that this language articulates. And the central value, therefore, is openness to experience. Charitas for differences and diversities to be found within experience. So experience reality itself has a claim which can equal almost experimental evidence. And Chinese medicine, Indian medicine being practiced for almost thousands of years, its own validity, which did not go only to the lab, it should start from the clinic itself. So there have been epochs of therapeutic research. The first epoch was experiential therapeutic research, mainly tribal, traditional healers, and you could only target relief of symptoms and some gross signs. Next came the experimental therapeutic research era, and chemists, biologists, pharmacologists, clinical pharmacologists, toxicologists, molecular pharmacologists all joined the team, which is still a dominant paradigm. And drug response targets were central because instead of going from bedside to bench for discovery, we moved from bench to bedside. So what we propose is an integrative therapeutic research. So clinical specialists come central. We have to go back again to the bedside to observe what novel therapeutic effects occur. And reverse pharmacology is one such path. But the targets can be very sophisticated. At the bedside, you can see with the current methods, markers can be right at the experiential stage itself. And that's the advantage which current advances in diagnostics and markers of response give us. So the new paradigm of integrative therapeutic research process involves pharmacoepidemiology, modern as well as traditional, observational therapeutics, and serendipity, and reverse pharmacology. So there is to be a change in the hierarchy. The hierarchy which was there in earlier, we may have to change the hierarchy because ultimately sometimes patients are the best discoverer of new drugs. And I am citing the father of clinical trial. Such personal observations of a handful of patients, acutely made and accurately recorded by the masters of clinical medicine, have been and will continue to be fundamental to the progress of medicine. We were to use a new drug upon one proven case of acute leukemia, and the patient made an immediate and indisputable recovery. Should we not have a result of the most profound importance? I think we need to go back to the bedside.
What is IUPHAR? IUPHAR is the International Union of Basic and Clinical Pharmacology. So it's an umbrella organization of all national societies in the world. We have now 58 member states representing 37,000 pharmacologists worldwide. So we try to put all the knowledge and research together, and our large congresses every 4 years. This is really the summit. Why are we talking about pharmacogenetics, kinetics, natural products? The question is always to treat patients right, to find the best medication for individuals, like it's depicted here. What is the best for this red person compared to the others? And there are some crucial questions in drug treatment. Why do treatments not work in some patients but in others? This is due for every medication, taking artificial or chemical compounds, but also natural products. What is the best for the person? It's a question, of course, of the disease, of the characterization, of best characterization of the disease. But why does it work in some patients and not in others? Why suffer some patients from adverse events and others do not? This is a big question to determine the best way. Why are adverse events occurring, and what is the special characteristic in the patient? Sometimes genetics is behind that. And are biomarkers available, allowing a prediction of drug response? I think this is currently today really challenged to identify markers of drug response and to predict adverse events to find the right medication. So just to go back, when we had the identification of the genetic code, it's now 18 years ago. At that time, the people believed now we have all the information to make the best of it. And over the years, we learned DNA is much more complicated. We have to learn much more about the character of diseases, what is other factors of transcriptomics, epigenetics, other environmental factors influencing diseases. And so DNA is not all. Lack of efficacy, a big problem in drug treatment. Many treatment failed. And the question is, why is it? Is it a matter of not binding to the right target, or is it just a matter of accelerated metabolic transformation on the right side, or decreased uptake, non-activation of the product, elevated efflux? Or on the left side, is it a matter of pharmacodynamics, cell target loss, receptor downregulation, signaling decoupling, and you see all the other items here on the left side, which could lead to lack of efficacy. Now, to give you just a short overview, the need of evidence, this is really the important way. We always need the need of evidence to identify the efficacy of drugs, but of course also for other traits. So the Clinical Pharmacogenetics Implementation Consortium has made a list of evidence levels. And the first one is genetic information should be used to change prescribing of the affected drug. Next level is not should, it could be used. It's down. And level C and D, no prescribing actions are recommended. And this is true for most of pharmacogenetic traits. Now, just published in Hepatology by a Chinese group, and this is called here for Polygonum multiflorum, which is widely used in Chinese traditional medicine. And there is some patients suffer from drug-induced liver injury, and here is a relationship. So the question is now, why does it happen? But this could be really a good marker to prevent patients to suffer from these severe side effects, because if there is more knowledge, if it's possible, maybe if there is the information available beforehand, those people should not be treated with such compounds.
And we know that at the beginning of for the human to cure the disease, we use all the medicines is natural products. But when we use it for a long time, and when the experience is communicated, we know which one and with what effects, and how to combine, how to use to treat the diseases. Oh yes, this is as a China, and maybe you know that there are a lot of books recorded natural products and recorded the traditional medicines. Recent years, many pharmacologists researched the toxicity of traditional medicines. I think it's very important. So, based on the research, like this year, at the beginning of this year, I published a book. It's there, but in Chinese. It's focused on the toxicity of traditional medicines. Yes, if possible, I will translate it to English and can be published. The natural products is the pure compounds as new drugs. Also, we isolated some extract as drugs used. But this is for the drug like this. The natural products can be used as an extract, such as EGB 761. For someone is for molecules. But the problem is how do we use the traditional medicines in the modern societies? This is very important. So, and I will to look for some diseases to end with some natural products. As a summary, I think the Xiaoxuming, even with different herbs together, and we isolated and test the effect, activities, and then come back together to see the effect in the models. We can find other components is worked on the ROS, calcium, ZAA, and apoptosis like this. I think for this effect can be exert the effect for the stroke. I hope this one can be used for the stroke, give a very good result for the human health.
Today, I am going to talk about bioactive discovery, joint venture, I would say, between Swiss, French, and even also Indian teams. So, actually, I am from Nestlé, so I am in the food space. The food space is quite different from the drug space, of course. Drugs are usually pure compounds that have been specifically improved or designed for specific targets. But of course, in the case of food, you are dealing with mixtures, and individually, each compound can have a very small effect. Natural, analog, sometimes natural, sometimes synthetic, but actually compounds that could help us to establish the structure-activity relationships of the compound. And on this project, we worked in collaboration with an Indian company in Bangalore, Syngene, who also helped us to synthesize the compounds. So the synthesis of luzentridine is based on the Wittig reaction between a triphenyl phosphine bromide and an iodinated aldehyde. So the first intermediate actually is Z-stilben. That is then cyclized, but of course the mode of cyclization is not specific since there is some symmetry of the molecule. So you can see that actually we got a mixture of two compounds that needed to be separated. But what we did, we first carried out the deprotection of the compound. The compound was protected with benzene groups, so we perform a catalytic hydrogenation to remove the benzyl. And this is actually the deprotected compounds that were purified to give rise to luzentridine. Lyophilized, crushed, and then extracted mainly with two solvents, either ethanol or 50% aqueous ethanol. Then we developed a method for the quantification, the specific quantification of luzentridine, which was an LCMS method. So the idea was that probably in plant extracts that were extremely rich in luzentridine, we could have also better chances to find analogs or related compounds to luzentridine.
So why it was difficult to put some products, to push some product in phase 1 or 2, it's just because it's impossible to isolate every compound when you study plants or microorganisms. You need to do bioguided fractionation or dereplication. When you collect plants, your material, biological material is very variable. So when you have 4 trees, only maybe 1 will be active, and we have done control on that. Sometimes it's due to endophyte or many reasons. Most of the time, recollection is pain in the neck, to be polite, because when you collect plants in Southeast Asia or in Africa, 1 month after, or for sure years after, the forest has been chopped down, so you cannot access to your sample again. Nature is not the best chemist to treat human disease. Plants are not were not selected for their activity on breast cancer or lung cancer, so the natural product need to be improved chemically. And this kind of hemisynthetic chemistry or synthetic chemistry is difficult, so with many asymmetric centers, so it's not so easy. And on the top of that, you have a legal uncertainty associated with plant collection. And it's clear that now most of the low-hanging fruit has been already collected. The most active components with in huge quantity. So we have to look for minute products with a strong activity.
Cardiovascular disease is the leading cause of death, mostly due to coronary artery diseases like atherothrombosis, affecting the heart function and the central nervous system due to stroke. We know that, we heard also that diet, what we eat, may have a very important impact on our health, and in particular on the cardiovascular system. It activates the local angiotensin system in the heart and in blood vessel to promote the development of heart and vascular remodeling and dysfunction, which of course has a very can contribute to this high cardiovascular risk. On the right-hand side, you can see what may be a healthy food. We know that from the States, the diet to treat spontaneous hypertension diet is interesting. The Mediterranean diet is also interesting. And this, of course, is rich in vegetables, in food, in fish intake. And this can have a very nice impact to inhibit this hyperactivation of the angiotensin system to prevent vascular and cardiac dysfunction and remodeling. And why is food so important to protect your cardiovascular system? We think it's mostly due because we have a high level of flavonoids in those food, which you can see here, the major categories, and some of those categories have shown very nice protective effects, in particular the flavin-free oils, you can see in dark chocolate, in grapes, in green tea, and also berries, which have a high levels of anthocyanin, and which I would like to share with you our research during the last 10 years.
This is a memento.
Inflammation load in our population, especially women, and to some extent on children. Then it's possible association with gut microbiota alteration, not just fecal microbiota alteration, but also other niches. And associated factors like, thus far, inflammation has always been associated with infections. It was always thought that only when the body is challenged with pathogens that inflammation happens to the body. And therefore, not much attention was paid to other factors. But now we know there is consistent evidence to show that inflammation can be generated by environmental exposure to environmental pollution, like heavy metals, chemicals, including fatty acids, like high-fat diet, high carbohydrate diet, extremely low protein diet, and also lack of vitamins and minerals in the diet. So these are small things that I'll be discussing. Not much data is available in this area, but small studies are there. And inflammation is defined as 2 or 3-fold rise in certain cytokines. Cytokines are small polypeptides, and they regulate immune response and facilitate influx of many cells, including neutrophils, monocytes, macrophages, etc. We conducted a study on children, 2 to 5-year-old small children. What we saw was, again here, total lactobacillus numbers were much higher in our children. Overall, it was much higher when we compare to the similar age group of children from other parts of the world. And among the same age group, living in the same environment also, when we categorize them into different nutrition status, severely undernourished children had much higher lactobacillus, significantly higher lactobacillus level compared to normal nutrition status. And also, the short-chain fatty acids, when we investigated, butyrate, which is known to improve intestinal barrier function, which suppress colonic inflammation, and which is also now known to improve insulin sensitivity, decreases adiposity, increases production of antioxidant, and it is also known to be neuroprotective, is decreased with undernutrition. So also these children had high inflammatory markers in their fecal sample. Calprotectin and IgA was significantly higher in these children, although they were all healthy, apparently normal, but probably living in an unhygienic environment and consuming diets which are poor in antioxidants or vitamins and minerals, which can favorably control inflammatory cytokines. So when these children were supplemented with certain probiotics for a period, they all reported well-being, and the short-chain fatty acids and branch-chain fatty acids were altered. Again, in young adults also in India, about 30 to 40% of our young adults, about 20 to 30-year-old, particularly girls, had high levels of C-reactive protein, which was associated with HOMA, impaired insulin resistance. And when they were supplemented with certain prebiotics and probiotics, as expected, some favorable regulation of inflammatory cytokines was seen.
Namely, Charaka Samhita and Shushruta Samhita, which was there perhaps in 3rd century BC. Both of them dealt with medicinal plants.
Just citrus species, this group of citrus species, if you consume, you get about 500 natural compounds. Not joking, I'll show that in a minute, but we are not just getting only vitamin C. So for example, we of course do a lot of bioactive derived assays, because for this group I don't have to explain in detail how we do that. But just to give you an idea, we are basically perfecting the method of extraction in basically trying to use the natural source, not solvents. So we're trying to use even water with high temperature so we can extract better some of these compounds. So for example, here if we increase to 160 degrees Celsius, we can extract some of these particular compounds without going through methanol or other solvents. So this is an example. I was not joking. If you take just citrus species, as I showed you different citrus species, lime, lemon, and orange, and whatever you can consider, there are mainly 6 citrus species, you can see that 500 bioactive compounds. So these are the compounds we isolated, and we tested in different cancer cells and heart diseases, and we took it to the animal model, and then we tried to understand in humans now. And we are the first time we reported some of these, particularly citrus limonoids and inhibition of cancer cells, and also among the limonoids and glucosides, ubiquinone and normaline, which I think you must have not heard because you focus on herbal products, of course. That's good always because you have more potency. These are present in citrus. This is like a neem tree, but the similar limonoids are there in citrus also. So also some of the volatile principle has shown significant inhibition in colon cancer, and we also demonstrated structural function relationship. And normaline and ubiquinone is one of the compounds which shown inhibition of the breast cancer.
For those of the biochemistry we work, they know some other glycosylation. As the proteins synthesized from the ribosomes, there is a glycosylation. This is slightly different from that. Once the protein is synthesized, with the time, there are a lot of modifications occurs which do not require enzymes, whereas the other glycosylation, it is an enzyme-dependent glycosylation. That's why most of the time we call this as non-enzymatic glycation. And it's also linked to a theory called glucose theory of aging. As I said in the previous slide, one great scientist called Anthony Cirami, who has put forward this theory of glucose theory of aging. That is nothing but protein glycation. What actually happens here is, just to brief you, that when you have the sugars, particularly reducing sugars, that react with the proteins, pre-amino group, in the beginning there will be an adduct called skip base. This skip base keeps changing and rearranging. You get a lot of intermediate products. Finally, something called advanced glycation end products. So you can also, henceforth I will be using a word called AGEs.
current status of clinical evaluation of safety and efficacy of different natural products in the context of Ayush particularly. I go with a little background, what is the startup process, how it is being regulated, what are the snapshot of what we are really doing on the clinical side, what are the regulatory process. Identifying to tribal healthcare across the country. More than 800 medicinal plants are used by the tribals, and still they need, we have to explore them. Then there are several, there are two approaches. Now it is legal in India, phytopharmacological approach. Second one is an Ayurveda or Ayush approach. With the rationale of Ayurveda literature to the unmet needs. For example, dengue is a disease which was not a HIV. And some new disease, emerging diseases, we have to fulfill the gaps.
My talk will be on the discovery of bioactive peptides from the marine organisms. And these topics will be a little bit different from the previous talk. That will be more early drug discovery in preclinical stage. I think the medicinal plant and also small molecules are still the major source of the current drug discovery. And also my main research is also on medicinal plant. But a few years ago, I started to explore and look into another different chemical space. And we identified a few of new clinical peptides from these organisms. And we performed the multiple sequence alignments with those lone homologs in other animals like snake, scorpio. And usually these clinical peptides, they have a consensus sequence, this pattern with 6 cysteines residue, and which these consensus cysteine residues can form 3 disulfide bond. And we use we predict their 3D structure and using molecular dynamics to simulate these, to predict the stability of these peptides. And eventually, we identified that this peptide potentially bind and dock into the potassium voltage-gated 1.1 channel. And the KV channel usually have a extracellular and intracellular and transmembrane region. And we found that this SOH Cunix 1 peptide that can nicely bind to the transmembrane regions.
Traditional Chinese medicine, and today my topic is CA30, an oligosaccharide fraction derived from Liu Wei Dihuang decoction ameliorate. And this is the agent in clinical trials for treatment of Alzheimer's disease in 2019. We can see a lot of medications was tested in clinical trial, but none of them were succeeded. But recently, as we know, there are very important progress in China. Sodium oligomanate named GB971 was approved for mild and moderate AD treatment, and this is seaweed sugar that was was cited. It's the first new Alzheimer's drug in 70 years.
I will talk about, I've called it traditional medicines, but I think it's natural products I'm going to be talking about and whether they can deliver on their potential in Western countries. From the discussions I've heard this afternoon, I think some people might agree with what I have to say, but I suspect not everyone. First time I went into a Chinese traditional pharmacy was this summer, and I also went to a traditional hospital, and they were both very interesting, and it was very exciting for me. And I should say, this is also my first visit to India, so 2 firsts this year. So I recognize, and no one's mentioned it so far, I don't think, but we are in the middle of a WHO strategy that runs from 2014 to 2023. And I know that everyone in the West and in the East is really keen that we make the most of natural products, and I certainly believe that. And I should also say that in 2022, the year before this strategy finishes, I will be president of the World Congress of Pharmacology, which will be held in Glasgow in Scotland, and I really hope that many of you will come to that meeting and that we will have some good sessions on natural products. So I'm going to talk about, I guess, how we, or I, but we in the West see natural products, what our perspective is, what the opportunities are, and what the challenges might be. And then I'm going to talk briefly about MHRA, our UK regulator, and a little bit about the way we've managed herbal regulation, and then finish with challenges and opportunities.
I will start with a clinical pharmacologist perspective, especially an initial one when I graduated and post-graduated. And then I'll bring up the traditional medicine concepts and the phytopharmaceuticals, which have now come into 2019, and then my perspective as of now. Well, I need not mention this here, I'm sure it has been mentioned by several people before me, that we have thousands of years of traditional medicine tradition in the country, and a very large number of medicinal plants are in use in Ayurveda, Siddha, Unani, and folk medicine. It was nearly 70 years back, really, that the Ayurvedic medicine came up into the modern literature. And we had this Rauwolfia serpentina. It's called serpentina because it has got snake-like roots, which is described in the ancient Indian literature Ayurveda. And Dr. Vakil from Mumbai, he published the antihypertensive activity of Rauwolfia. There are several Ayush doctors appointed in the government programs, and there are traditional drugs in the national reproductive and child health programs, and Ayush facilities are also present in health centers and community health centers and so on.
And I appreciate you not only for your civilization, your culture, but also for your tremendous kindness and empathy. So thank you very much. Immunopharmacology addresses a selective regulation of immune responses and aims to uncover and exploit beneficial therapeutic options for typical immunological diseases such as cancer, allergy, autoimmune diseases, but also non-typical immune-related diseases where there is inflammation. Of course, as the name says, it connects pharmacology and immunology, and this is important in drug discovery and development, again, due to the key role of the immune system.
This is going to be more of an industry perspective or the downstream of the work that goes on in development of nutraceuticals. So I thought, coming from an industry, I thought I would bring in the market perspective. I don't need to tell this audience how important it is that the preventive healthcare is given equal attention, if not equal, maybe greater attention than curative and palliative. Market forces are also changing in that perspective. More and more, the market is looking at a proactive and a predictive healthcare rather than a reactive healthcare. Consumers are looking at a personalized healthcare rather than one size fitting all. The businesses are looking at providing value. The consumer is looking at wanting to get more value for every rupee spent. Instead of a volume-based business, they are looking at a value-based business model. And instead of an institutionalized, centralized delivery of healthcare, a decentralized delivery of healthcare is what is being looked at in the market.
The coin is abstracted from brown origin. So the Fucoindan has multiple pharmacological activities. The part one is low molecular weight Fucoindan protect from acute kidney injury. Injury is a very severe kidney disease clinically. In this study, I use an animal model of renal ischemia reperfusion injury. In this model, at first, we removed right kidney, then tied the left artery of the kidney for 25 minutes, then reperfuse for 24 hours. Then we collect the samples for analyzing the proteins and other markers related to the acute kidney injury. At first, we found the ischemia reperfusion caused renal dysfunction.
My focus will not only remain on the herbal remedies, but it would be the innovative remedies, as my institute is working only on those practices which are not there in classical codified text. They are patentable, and lots of products are developed based on that. When you see the scenario of a village, it is not that just there is a house and outside it is written that innovator is living in this house. No, you have to go, you have to talk to them, and many times when you start getting the information, first you have to share the information with them. So what is our general methodology? First, we identify the problem of that particular area, and whatever is there in our database, we make a presentation and share with those people, okay, you do have these problems, and this is the solution. These are the solutions which we do have in our database, so might be useful to you.
We started Pharmacovigilance Program of India almost 10 years back as Pharmacovigilance Program of India. The issue of multimodal system in India is much more complex.
Liver injury and more globally injuries. And so, discussing with colleagues from IUPHAR, we decided to join our efforts and our skill to write some guidelines. But you can imagine that it is a very, very complicated domain because it's very complicated to design as a group. It's very complicated to have a good frame on what will be treated in the guidelines. So we have a long preparatory works to do all together.
So basically we taught regarding the drug-drug interaction of basically allopathic medications. So there is no teachings or no textbooks or nowhere literature is there where if at all patient is combining all these things, like a patient is taking allopathic medication and also taking some sort of a homeopathic or any Ayush product, what is the interaction of this on allopathic medication? Nowhere it is there.
Drug interactions interfering with allopathic therapies. We heard about drug-induced liver injury as one point.
Recently, 2 years back, we have received a request that NIN must start the Nutra-Vigilance program, and we have established a program. But the issue which I may like to open in front of everyone, sir, how to document the information, whether there is a SOP or whether there is a harmonization where you can record the information. If the information recorded, how it will go to the public domain and how people will react to it. Until unless we develop some schedules to record this and how the physician informs us or a layman informs us, like the way in which you have done for pharmacovigilance, where the pharmacovigilance program has become successful in India only because you have developed the modules, you have developed the schedules, you have given an option to the public.
In 2010, 15 July. So when we launched this program, the mandate of the program is, collecting the reports, spontaneous report for all the medicines. And when you take up the context of Indian developing nation, like if you ask any patient who come to the OPD, if you ask the detail, you know that before they come to the tertiary care centers, they have been already treated with some of the desi medicine, which we call it herbal or botanicals or Ayush product. So it's very important for doctors when we go for a training program that take a detailed history, at least, ask simple question, do you have an allergy? Have you been treated with any traditional medicine? The reason behind, without knowing that we prescribe the medicine and there is a drug-herb interaction, drug dietary food interaction. So that need to be avoided. And that is why in PBPA program, we have a pharmacovigilance program, we have a hemovigilance program, we have a biovigilance program, and more important focus on, herbovigilance, or drug which we use, the natural product, we need to monitor that drug. Along with, is there any concomitant, drug-drug interaction with the herb, or drug-food interaction or dietary supplement? That need to be monitored, and that is why that we need to have a database. So if you look at since 2010, we have database of almost 3.5 lakhs database across India. We have a pan-India, which we collected and put it into the busy flow and busy base.
The rationale behind this is that we all aim at characterizing natural products which are considered as privileged structure because, as you know, they have been shaped by evolution and they are used in traditional medicine. So they give us advantage to probably interact with biological targets, and this is one of the fundamental aspects in drug discovery in general. And what you see on the right is the chemical space occupied by natural product, and in blue, the chemical space occupied by natural product is very vast, and actually it matches quite well the space which is occupied by drug actually on the market. So, and this is quite different from combinatorial chemistry. So this shows that there is still a good potential to have interesting bioactive compounds for drug discovery from natural origin, and about 30% of all drugs which are on the market today are either natural product or derived from natural products. When you want to get a new bioactive natural product, you would like to have it in a pure form, but these pure entities are convoluted in very complex mixtures, which are the crude extracts. And the job of phytochemists is to elaborate strategies in order to get the needle in the haystack in a very rational manner.
This is the recent data from the, in Chinese we call it diabetic map. It's from the International Diabetic Federation. And there are estimated that in this year there will be 463 million diabetic patients worldwide. Many compounds have been found, the morphine, the aspirin, the metformin, all lithium, but this work effect is not very effective. And so the modern drug discovery strategies has been transferred to this ways. And from the mechanism of the disease, the molecular targets are found. And it will take to the pharmacodynamics and pharmacochemistry, and they will find what will work in this disease.
Metabolic syndrome is a cluster of the most dangerous risk factors. World Health Organization criteria require the presence of any one of impaired glucose tolerance, impaired fasting glucose, insulin resistance, and so on. On the other hand, the prevalence of MAS is very hard and important to aggravate tissue damages. Therefore, MAS is a major health problem. Evidence from studies showed you that artificial sweat loss is one of the commonest causes of MAS. It is a major contributor to insulin resistance and inflammation, showing immunometabolic dysregulation, causing podocyte injury, however, uncovering the molecular magazines.
Today I'm going to tickle all the people who are sitting here, their minds to think a little differently about the toxicology, and based on case studies, I would give some examples of what we have done. Whenever anybody tries to look at a natural product or a single herb, any drug development would ask for one big question: where is the safety data? And the safety data, immediately a reductionist approach, kind of a NCE-based drug development person will simply say, I want 90 days toxicology data. And then other questions come up like Ames test, chromosomal aberration, teratogenicity, and all the things. I put this question to ourselves when we were working in Unilever. Remember, Unilever in India has this knowledge and idea about the history of safe use of these documented plants, And only 2 nations in the world has that large documented evidence of history of safe use. One is India in Ayurveda and other traditional knowledge, and the other is traditional Chinese medicine.
Phytopharmaceuticals, which is a new class regulated in India for herbal medicines. Now, when we go for the global scenario of botanical medicine, herbal medicine has been considered an important alternative to the modern allopathic system, and only very few plants have been scientifically evaluated for their potential in the medical treatment. Well, in most countries, the herbal drugs are poorly regulated and are often neither registered nor controlled by the health authorities. The safety of the herbal medicine remains a major concern, and in the United States, the FDA has estimated that over 50,000 adverse events are caused by botanical and other dietary supplements. In addition, for most herbal drugs, the efficacy has not been proved. So, to address this issue, the US FDA has created a separate guidance document for botanical products for NDAs and IND submissions 2004.
Moscow is famous and rare and precious Chinese medicine with long history in China. Currently, more than 400 prescriptions of Chinese medicine contains muscat. So the natural muscat have been insured in medicinal markets for many years, for a long time. Artificial muscat was studied since later 1970s. It's already more than 40 years. And it was approved for medicinal use by CFDA at 1993. So this, the artificial muscat is developed in our institute.
Quality of traditional medicines is a concern, and it is of concern how to analyze those, ensure those quality control of those herbal medicines. So I'll be showing you some examples how we have analyzed the metabolites, complete profiling of these plants. So today we see in the market that there is flood of herbal products like you see here jamun or ashwagandha, eucalyptus, potentilla, and many others are there. So we need to standardize those herbal materials for ensuring their quality, and here are the parameters which we need to study for the quality control and standardization of those herbal materials.
I'm Dr. Alejandro Mayer, Professor of Pharmacology. The title of my presentation is the Global Marine Pharmaceutical Pipeline. I will divide the presentation into 3 sections. In about 2010, my colleagues and I published a paper titled The Odyssey of Marine Pharmaceuticals, the Current Pipeline Perspective, which consolidated the information till about 2009. The current marine pharmaceutical pipeline can be illustrated with this triangle, and that is supported by over 10,000 purified and structurally characterized marine natural products.
IU Genomics, IU Soft, which means that based on Ayurvedic knowledge base, we have created these new platforms for the integrative health and drug discovery. I believe that there are a lot of clues available in Indian traditional knowledge systems such as Ayurveda with their concepts such as Agni, Ama, Dosha, Dhatu, Mala, and several others. We showed that the typical traditional way to classify population based on Ayurvedic system has genetic connotation. And this branch now is known as IU Genomics. We could identify genetic signatures for each of these Prakriti types. So I think that future is going to be the integrative, not only integrative in terms of modern medicine and traditional medicine, but also integrating the India systems, which Ayurveda deals with medicine and yoga deals with mind, So these combining these two together are also important.
Clinical trial registration and results reporting would help ensure unbiased public records on safety and efficacy of drugs. So what are the global developments? Before, there are so many clinical trial registries in the world. In November 2004, at the Ministerial Summit on Health Research in Mexico, all stakeholders called for an action to establish a platform linking a network of international clinical trial registers to ensure a single point of access and unique identification of trials. At the 50th meeting again, WHO took up the lead to setting up an international clinical trial registration platform, ICTRP.
Very good number of drugs, 11 drugs already developed
and some of the drugs are available in the market currently also. This is one of the compounds, centroman. It's a contraceptive. Recently, this government health department is using our product. And other products, RT ether, that's an anti-malarial drug where the chloroquine doesn't work, this compound only work, and it is more potent than the natural product artemisinin. So CDR has developed a process, and several companies are using this process and making this molecule. The CDRI has also developed some natural product like a standardized herbal remedy for memory issue. This is also still, it is there in current market. Concept, again, it is there in the market. Gugulipid, this is an anti-hyperlipidemic agent, again. So this is also.
Even like if you see one of the natural products actually like this capsaicin, that cream is available for the neuropathy which has been isolated from this capsicum. But there are a lot of like flavonoids, isoflavonoids, phenolic acid compounds, cannabinoids actually, they have been investigated in diabetic neuropathy. So you will see like plenty of like compounds which have been isolated and investigated. This is like the list of some of the molecules actually which have been isolated from the plant source and showing the very good activity against the diabetic neuropathy.
I am today here to talk about on marine products. Fishing is an age-old practice. It has been practiced since Paleolithic period. It is assuming much importance today because it is addressing food and nutritional security. Now everybody is talking about blue revolution as it is addressing employment, income generation, and livelihood support of many people. And it contains all the nutrients in good quantities, and all the essential amino acids are there in the protein, and it represents like 15.6% of animal protein supply in the world and almost 5.6% of total protein supply.
To revitalize our essential nutrients or natural products, there is a way out, and that way out is nothing but the upcoming nanotechnology, liposomal technology, because everybody knows curcumin being completely insoluble in water and other solvents except one or two. So its bioavailability is absolutely poor. Therefore, people are trying to convert into a nano delivery system, and based on that system, they are able to get some wonderful pharmacodynamic effects. We are the Indians, we believe in our holy book of Bhagavad Gita, Yadaditya gatam tejo jagad bhasayate kilam yat chandramasi yatagnav tat tejo vidhi mamakam. The meaning of this is, see, this has been a ritual in Hindus and India. I should say it's in India for ancient India. That means people have recognized there is the most essential natural products are being produced by the mother nature in our bodies, in our living systems. One of the most natural product, I should say, is the melatonin, which is produced in your brain. And the most natural product is vitamin D.
It is viscous secretion which is produced by the plant when the plant gets injured. It coagulates when it comes in contact with air, and they are all, the latex produced by these plants are known to contain proteins, alkaloids, tannins, resins, and gums, have been shown to have important role in the plant defense. Some of the properties which are highlighted here are beneficial effect of these latex producing plants in conditions like epilepsy.
So they're in the market.
The Ayurvedic drugs are occupying a position in the major healthcare programs in India because there is no or inadequate treatment facilities for disease conditions like metabolic disorders and degenerative diseases. So a drug which is having a multi-component and acts on multiple targets is preferred than one target, one drug paradigm. And Ayurvedic drugs are multi-component and fast emerging system biology, which says a living system is a multi-component with an interconnected molecular network. So finally, the philosophy of system biology and Ayurvedic philosophy, holistic and holistic, secondary metabolites, as we have been discussing all these 3 or 4 days, and the whole globe is concentrating, and the natural components are being subjected to hybridization, as we have heard in the earlier lectures.
We are actively involved in the isolation and characterization of the bioactive compounds from the medicinal plant extensively used in traditional medicine or in the folklore systems of medicine. After getting the lead compounds, we are taking a forward to as a clinical drug candidate by chemical modification or simplification by adding some more groups for enhancing the activity or decreasing the toxicity. And after analyzing the biological activity of derivatives or individual compounds, we are able to identify the active pharmacophore which is responsible for the activity. And in the applied side, we are actively involved in the standardization of the multi-herbal formulation based on the marker compounds. We involved actively in the pilot scale isolation or process development of the active compound from the crude extracts. I am talking about the lichens, and apart from their ecological importance, recently these lichens have attracted chemists and biologists because of their medicinal resources due to the production of the wide variety of the active secondary metabolites called depsides, depsidones, and naphthaquinones.
How can we find solutions for diseases which have resisted therapy by decades and which are absolutely necessary to find therapy? I've worked in the pharma industry all my life, so this is my attempt to do it myself with 2 employees, during which time in the last 6 years the citation index is for pharmacologists is equivalent to major companies, so I'm quite pleased about that. Amyotrophic lateral sclerosis is a terrible disease of denervation and paralysis for which there is no real cure. Lou Gehrig's disease, and it's also an underestimated aspect of it is energy metabolism. And metabolic aspects are major, with the necessity of lipid supplements, possibly due to deficient glucose and lipid metabolism. They're paralyzed, but they lose weight massively. So it's an adult motor neuron disease, 100% fatal. It's the most common rare disease. And according to our calculations, if India, which doesn't have the proper statistics, has the same ratio, there are 72,000 people in India at present.
Mainly chemical markers for the popular single-agent drugs, the government has decided for the which are popularly using for the 40 drugs. They have given for the 40 drugs. IICT is doing for 10 drugs for the markers as well as the chemical. So our main role is isolation of the pure compound. So where we are helping means traditional plants very active, but its active chemical constituents not known, are not chemical investigated. Our job is we are doing from the chemical compounds for that. The second is the drug is already in the market to crude form. In the job, our job is to quality. What is the percentage of active principle present in the before formulation or after the formulation?
Alzheimer's disease is a neurodegenerative disease, and neurofibrillary tangle is a pathological marker of AD, and also is related to the cognitive impairment according to the clinical symptoms. And it's also composed of the hypophosphorylation tau protein. And recently a study found the tau oligomers are very toxic to the neurons. This kind of transgenic mice called RTG4010 mice express the P301L mutation of the human tau. And it produces much higher the tau protein than the murine tau. And also, it shows the early and aggressive phenotypes as the AD and other tauopathy models.
And AD is the most common dementia, accounting for nearly 60 to 70% of all dementias. And the nature of AD pathogenesis still remain unexplained till now. And we are facing a global increasing burden of AD. 1998 to 2015, nearly 20 years, the vast majority of agents have failed to achieve their primary clinical endpoints.
The topic which I have selected for presentation is the natural products as potential source of antiviral drug development. And we have also identified a protein, which is a fusion protein in the membrane lipid abdomen, that is the protein disulfide isomerase, which is also responsible for the entry inside the cell, that is known as the, we have published this, the protein disulfide isomerase mediate dengue virus entry in association with lipid rafts. But this protein disulfide isomerase having the chaperonic activity and important vital protein, you cannot target the PDI for your means inhibition of the virus. So we have the objective, what is the role of PDI, that is protein disulfide isomerase in dengue-infected human macrophages, and to develop a potential antiviral drug or based on natural products to prevent the dengue infection.
I would like to share the most adventurous research on Indian mangrove flora. So we have screened several mangrove species, and Clerodendron inerbi actually we have planted in our institute, and these are highly salt tolerant plants, but we can grow to some extent in our institute as garden plants. And this Avicennia afforded the very significant bioactive cyclosqualene betulinic acid.
Natural products cover a lot broader range of physicochemical space, and natural products have been made by biosynthetic enzymes, so they already have this innate ability to interact with nature. Furthermore, however, there's 250,000 natural products known in the Dictionary of Natural Products, but only about 20% of those are readily obtainable. So even if we screen natural products from commercial sources, we're not going to capture this incredible diversity of structures that nature offers. Also, when we look at high-throughput screening and PubMed citations, over the last 30 years, the citations on HTS have been growing up and up, but when we do a sub-search on natural products, the natural products are staying in the baseline. So again, it's a much underutilized resource. We presented 2 different libraries at the workshop. The first library was Strathclyde Library for natural product plants, where there are 6,000 crude plant extracts from everywhere around the world, and they represent about 95% of all plant families.
Around 70 new medical entities continue to be sourced from natural products, and believe it or not, still through phenotypic screening. So we've moved on to now a paradigm really whereby we have a balance between phenotypic screening and target-based screening. So phenotypic screening based on if you want to treat a disease, you have to find the cause. So this is based on forward pharmacology, compounds screened in cellular or animal diseases. We're looking for a desirable phenotype. Once you've got to that, then you have to go through a process of target deconvolution, where a drug that appears efficacious, you actually then need to find the target. And then when you found that target, you can go full circle and start to move back into phenotypic screening. So we have to understand that what we have now is a complete interrelationship between phenotypic and target-based screening. We discussed at the workshop a possible range of screening technologies that were developed specifically for the small molecule drug discovery.
How you can use gene expression or RNA-seq transcriptome data to sort of get a better phenotypic assay for what's going on, and to try to understand and get candidate pathways that might be acted on by an extract. So what do you do if you have an extract that won't respond to standard activity enrichment or fractionation? You can correlate phenotypes and bioassays with gene expression. You can do fractional deletions of major compounds and see how that perturbs gene expression and phenotype. If you have a mixture of extracts, say a lot of extracts are made from multiple plants, you can actually have individual plant extracts, and you can look at their interactions to see which plants contribute to the total sum of the combined extract. And if there's synergistic interactions of a natural product with, say, pharmaceutical, if it's used as an adjuvant in cancer therapy, you can identify the synergistic interactions at the pathway level using gene expression.
One of the key initiatives that I put forward as one of my goals for the tenure as editor-in-chief of the journal was that I wanted to increase not only the number of publications on natural products published within the journal, but also to support the community in improving the quality of submissions to the journal. And this talk is just going to be a summary of those efforts, which will be ultimately published in some new guidance that we're going to publish at the beginning of next year, that detail what it is that we require from any submissions on natural products to be published in our journal. I'd like to think that the initiatives that I introduced at the end of 2015-2016 led to this increase in submissions, and as you can see over the years, an increase in overall acceptance rate. But I think what you can see here is that the detail regarding the extraction procedure is, well, it is detailed. We have no word count in our methodologies so that we can enable full disclosure of the steps involved in the extraction of, in the creation of extracts from plants or mammalian tissues.
We are now declaring the scientific session closed. We are going to have the valedictory session now. I request the validity section to be chaired by our director, Dr. Hemlata and Dr. Michael Spading, to come on to the dais, followed by our president, Dr. Shiv Prakash, Dr. Kala Kumar.
It's been a remarkable success, and I would also like to thank all the international delegates, and particularly the speakers who've come a long way for giving some quite remarkable training for students, presentations, insights, which we hope to be able to revolutionize the national products, bringing together the two worlds around evidence-based medicine and also mechanistic aspects, particularly on aging. I think it's absolutely crucial that this be continued. And one of the things which is crucial is, first of all, to continue international collaboration, because our friends from the Chinese Pharmacological Society brought 50 scientists. And the president and past president of the society, Dr. Guanadu and Yongzhang Zhang are in the audience. And this is a unique opportunity between India and Chinese medicine. So that's a crucial aspect to continue. Another aspect was the training for the young scientists. And Cherry Wainwright produced a list of requests from them, which I think we should be guaranteed to honor in the future, which is continued training in appropriate technology, developing the appropriate technology in India, and also continuing to give them summer schools and training so that they can liberate themselves from previous technologies and go on in a new world, which will then reinforce education and reinforce the capacity of India and China and the rest of the world to develop wealth. So I would really like those recommendations to be pushed as very firm recommendations from IUPHAR's point of view in order to be able to continue from this Congress and have further developments in that direction, which will give young people hope, ability to change the paradigm, and to let them take on the baton in the future. So that's a really critical message.